Okay, good day, everybody. Welcome to this virtual coffee. Today, our topic is how does CQL fits into BPM Plus Health. So I'm going to ask for everybody's leeway. I'm going to try to do this in the best possible way. And then following, we'll have discussion and we can then exchange on our different point of view and position on these elements. So fundamentally, we want to address OMG's BPM Plus, namely BPMN, the business process model and notation, DMN, the decision model and notation, and CMMN, the case management model and notation, and how it relates to HL7 CQL, which is the clinical quality language. So how does CQL actually fit into all this mix? I'm going to try to address this from different perspectives to generate some conversation after. So looking at it from a language perspective, BPMN, DMN, and CMMN are what I would call visual low-code languages, where CQL is a literal low-code language. So they're all low-code in the sense that they're amicable to subject matter expert programming with them or drawing or figuring the code. The difference is that CQL, you have to actually type the expression, where into BPMN, CMMN, and DMN, you're more drawing pictures. From an industry perspective, BPMN, CMMN, and DMN are industry agnostic, where CQL is healthcare specific. Now, there's a lot of value for CQL to be healthcare specific because it means that it brings together some already recognized notions. So for example, CQL knows of the notion of a population versus a patient, a single patient, and it knows things that are more closer to the industry, where BPMN, CMMN, and DMN don't have at their core these notions. You have to bring them in somehow with your models. From a main purpose kind of perspective, and that's where I'm going to ask for some leeway, BPMN is mostly for orchestrating activities. DMN is more or mostly about deciding based on some input. CMMN is more about reacting within a certain context, reacting to events. And CQL, I would argue, that is more about computing healthcare measures and ratios or creating some healthcare queries, and more specifically, FHIR, but CQL is broader than just FHIR. So when we bring all this together, within the BPM Plus collection of languages, there's already a lot of overlaps. So, there's things that can be done either in BPMN or DMN or either in CMMN and BPMN, and there's a lot of overlap. But we come to know that within the BPMN or the BPM Plus health community, that our sweet spot is really where we can efficiently use that jointure of BPMN, CMMN, and DMN together, and that's where we get our best value. When we bring CQL into this mix, again, we have a lot of overlaps that exist and that are possible. And I would argue that the sweet spot for healthcare is really in that centerpiece where you make the best use of BPMN, CMMN, and DMN and CQL all together into a combined environment. But then the question is, okay, but what about all those overlaps? What do we do there? So within the BPM Plus community or model-driven architecture kind of community, we're big on the notion of separation of concern, which is if you have things that could be modeled in DMN or in BPMN or in CMMN and BPMN, then if it's about orchestration of activities, you should really move these into the BPMN pure sense. And when you have things that are more about reacting to events within a context, then these would be better addressed within the pure CMMN area of this diagram. And the same goes with deciding based on input. You could write decision in BPMN or in CMMN, but it's really not efficient. You're better to do that within the pure DMN environment. And then I would argue that the same goes with CQL, bringing CQL into the mix. Your best bet is to whenever you're computing healthcare measures or dealing with any kind of queries of healthcare, you're better to use CQL to express these. So I would then argue globally that the sweet spot for healthcare is by combining both the separation of concern and that sweet spot where we have the best of all world all together. So in a more maybe practical way, we have the orchestration activities, as you see in this BPMN type diagram where the orchestration is done in BPMN. We have the computing of healthcare measures and ratios and other related healthcare activities that we can do in a CQL. And then we have decision that we can do in DMN, and we have reacting to particular events within a context that we can do in CMMN. So we have basically that way we have a single visual knowledge artifacts for both clinician and the automation. So we have kind of, I would argue, the best of all world by combining all these together. And did I forget to mention about FHIR? Naturally, with BPM Plus, with CQL, the underlying data information access would be all relying on FHIR, whether you're anywhere into these processes. So that was basically my intro. We're now going to stop the recording and start discussing this and see what everybody wants to put in their little 2 cents in. So, Harriet, can